Hello everyone. In an effort to better understand my enemy, I decided to look into the band Sleep Token, who is a member of the slurry of whatever modern metal is, and has picked up a lot of steam lately. I'm late to the party, actually. They got huge probably in the last 8 months or so. And anything that catches fire like that and is on adjacently metal or called metal, I should probably pay attention to, because most likely this is a band that, if it gets as big as it's going to get, will dictate the future of a genre that is rapidly shedding layers of the inherent aspects of what metal is. So decided to give it a listen. And before I get to the music itself, let's talk about what a normie would tell you if you were to ask them what Sleep Token is, because they would be the best person to ask. They would tell you first that they're a band that wears costumes on stage. They're cloaked up and masked up, much like Ghost, and they have vaguely occult imagery. And I understand why you would want to lead with that. You're going to lead with your gimmick and then try to hook me with your music afterwards. The gimmick is what sells. And they're another band, much like Ghost, that relies on the anonymity of their players to get over. Because anyone that listens to a band like this is going to want to play the game of figuring out who the players are. And for whatever the music is, it is broadcast confidently enough where it appears that it must be people that have portrayed, that have been part of other bands previously. If it is comprised of legitimate metal musicians, I would not be surprised as to why they're wearing masks and cloaks. But let's talk about that for a minute. If you're going to be wearing a mask on stage, what is it that you're trying to tell me? Well, for me, it means you're probably ashamed of your material. Because you probably don't want some asshole like me talking about how terrible you are at music online. But the reason I feel like that is many years ago when Deicide was doing their tour for, I think it was Incinerate Him, or maybe In Torment in Hell, if you remember that. They put out that record before a year had passed from Incinerate Him, just to get out of their label contract, and it was so terribly slapped together that it makes modern Deicide look good in comparison. But I went to see him on that tour, and they took the stage, and this is a band that everyone in metal knows who the players are. It still had the Hoffman brothers in it at the time, and they all took the stage, and they were all wearing masks, and it was fucking hysterical, because, dude, we know who you guys are. And to me, that just shows me that they were ashamed of what they were about to do on stage, and they were ashamed of having to give the audience that material in the last couple of records, which was so obviously not up to par with what Deicide could do. So that's what masks mean to me. But if a normie sees a mask, they're going to be drawn by the intrigue, and they're going to talk about that first and foremost. So what else is a normie going to want to like in their music? First and foremost, they're going to want breakdowns, and this band, of course, relies on that for their heavy parts. And if every modern band is going to have a breakdown now, so how do you judge a band? How do you judge their breakdowns? I don't know. I'm not a modern listener, but I assume it's going to be on the heaviness of it, which is production based, on the mathematical elements of it, which is whether or not you can count it, because that's part of the fun in modern metal, is to try to figure out the polyrhythm. And whether or not it makes you want to move. That's important too. And this band relies on that kind of sound that every modern metal band is doing, where it's more of the nu metal school of breakdowns, where it's not as percussive in a palm muted sense, but they let the very down-tuned guitar, most likely 8-string register, just kind of just let it run out, and then break it up with a couple of palm mutes, and then let it ring again, while there's some ethereal keyboard shit over the background. Very easy recipe to emulate, and that ethereal shit, you can have it be in essentially any key if you're just going to run the open note over the top. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. There's no actual commitment to your note arrangement, so it's a fun free-for-all. But Another band that I had heard recently that abides by the same kind of school of breakdown writing is a band called LLNN, which was advertised to me as apocalyptically heavy, which is, again, more buzzwords that don't mean anything, much like the word fresh to Subway. It's completely meaningless. But listening to that, it's the same idea where you just let your low note ring and you have your cymbal kind of carry the rhythm throughout, and then break it up a little bit, hit the low note again, and then go into something that's slightly different in terms of vibe. But a lot of people are calling that band very edgy in terms of it makes you feel uncomfortable, which will draw someone like me who actually wants confrontational music, and I did not find it there. I do not find it in Sleep Token. But let's talk about whether or not Sleep Token is good, because, they're going to have the recipe. They're going to have the breakdowns. They're going to have the ethereal parts. They're going to have sing-along passages. A thing about this band that's actually very noteworthy is their vocalist is very talented. It's a shame that he's stuck in this modern metal product band, but they're all going to be now. But anyway, is the band good? And I would judge it based on their arrangements, and no, they are not, because this is a band that has checklists that they want to portray to the audience. You got to have your breakdowns, you got to have your ethereal passages, you got to have your choruses, you got to have your vocals that everybody can sing along to. But they do not know how to marry that in the slightest. It's kind of like your Opeth type of arrangement where the vibe of one section will completely stop, and then they'll go to another completely unrelated section that has the heavy part, and then they'll bring it around for the chorus, and as seen in their most recent single, which everybody is talking about, they'll go into like a Maroon 5 part, which of course has been lampooned by a band like Polyphia with that kind of chord arrangement. If you were to listen to the single in question, you would not. It's hard to not be taken aback as an extreme music fan, at just how utterly pop it is. And people that do not understand music will call that part jazzy, because no one knows what that is. No one knows what jazz is, and they'll call it that because it's the rhythm is a little bit chopped up. It's a little bit syncopated. It doesn't make it jazz. I don't know what jazz is. I'm not going to tell you that metal is jazzy, because that would be disingenuous of me. But people are doing it anyway, and that jazzy element of a pop part of a song is going to be the perfect marriage of giving you what everybody loves, but with that slight hint of obscurity to make you feel like you're edgy enough to have points over the people you're going to try to show this band to. And I wanted to hear if this band could pull off the vocals live, so I checked it out, and everybody was singing along so loud that I could not even tell. And that just goes to tell you what people want to hear nowadays in metal adjacent bands. They just want to hear something that will soothe them as they get through their trivial lives, much like a baby in a crib batting away in a mobile that's giving them a twinkle twinkle little star kind of song. That's what people want, with occasional heavy parts to mirror the tantrum that they wish they could throw for having to belong to the current state of the world. But yeah, I mean, if you were to listen to this, it would be essentially, because of how their arrangements work, it's like blending up an iPhone with a pumpkin spice latte and all the seasons of Stranger Things together, and having me like ram a funnel down my throat and someone force feeding it to me. That's what listening to this band is like. And is it enjoyable? Sure. But, so is aerosol cheese and hand jobs. But those aren't quality products. It's something that'll whet your appetite for now. But, people that want to go outside probably are going to be, hopefully, looking for something better. And that's the problem, is that this band could only succeed in this modern climate, with people that have been constantly plugged into the internet for their whole lives and been told what they're supposed to like. And because of the option paralysis of the internet, they're not going to want to go any further. They're not going to want to go down rabbit holes. They're going to look for stuff that is going to immediately gratify them, and hopefully it has a couple of obscure points to it to brag about along the way. That's what this band is. And, I didn't really want to talk about this band. People have asked me to talk about this band, but it's important because they have figured out the formula to change the game. And, whenever you hear someone say that, that's of course going to be a dissolving of the little bit that we have left of the barriers that define what a genre is. And that's what this is. This is a band that is going to up the ante in terms of what you're going to be hearing out of pop in a metal formula. And that's unfortunately going to inspire more copycats. And 5 years from now, there's not going to be anything left of what is inherent to metal because of a band like this, aside from tribute acts. And, maybe it's for the best. Maybe we, like I have said before, maybe we should just move on and stop trying to champion the potential rebirth of a genre that we all love. I give you this entire monologue based on the fact that I have just put out a post-rock record, and I do believe the material in it is inherently solid. Of course, I'm going to defend my own material, but I put it out knowing the parameters of what post-rock is and how it works as a volume within that lexicon. But this is a band that people are going to think is metal, and it's going to be the wrong information. And I am trying to get my own record out and into people's ears, and in order to do that, because I just don't have the time to promote, and I hate being the check out my band guy, the very little promotion I have done has been telling you guys about it and close friends, because I just do not have the time or the patience. I'm too fucking old, and I understand how little I matter in the grand scheme of how everything is digested entertainment-wise. But I did look to talk to a PR guy to try to get it out, and he laid it all out for me in terms of how products are going to be consumed, and the people like him, unfortunately, are the gatekeepers. I'm not the gatekeeper. A lot of people will accuse me of that. They are the people that will decide whether or not your music will reach an audience. And maybe this band got over organically. I don't know. But the real people that are going to stop what is going to be heard by people and will allow stuff that to get in people's ears are the PR execs and the media. And it's an unfortunate reality because the musical landscape is so inundated right now that you do need someone like that to kind of push stuff through that matters. But that what matters thing is where it gets difficult to discern, because they're of course going to look at what the audience wants to hear rather than try to push something that is artistically sound. And then you get bands like Sleep Token, which have figured out the recipe. If you're someone that likes to follow a recipe, if you just want to be placated and hear everything that you have come to be comforted by in metal adjacent music, then they're the perfect band for you. But people like me and people that are actual fans of the genre take note, because this is a band that could potentially do more damage to the genre than anyone before it. So that's my take on Sleep Token. Thank you for listening.